I know there's a lot to cover today, so we will get started. Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, How to Manage Your WordPress Website, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted, but if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Cameron Nelson, Chief Digital Advisor for the Central Virginia SBDC. Cameron has over 18 years of experience in technology and is a senior tech consultant in Silicon Valley, helping Fortune 500 companies improve their digital marketing and e-commerce. At the same time, he also founded several tech companies, including a software as a service website for tree preservation and a blockchain platform for nonprofits. Cameron is accomplished in language, culture, and has an MBA and MA. He believes new technology products have the ability to help shape our world for the better. Please join me in welcoming Cameron Nelson.
Thanks for the introduction, and hello everybody. Welcome to How to Manage Your WordPress Website. It's been updated now for 2023. And the format of today's presentation will be that there'll be a slide deck followed by a live demo of an active WordPress website, which I'll do more of a deep dive into some of the things I introduce here in the slide deck. And then following that, we'll have 30 or 40 minutes for your questions. And I hope that, throughout this presentation, you jot down any questions you have, and I hope that we can get to them all in the course of the Q&A session. And if not, reach out to the SBDC at the email address here on your screen, and they'll be able to help set you up with someone who can answer your questions in more detail. Also, this will be presentation will be emailed to you after I'm done, so you'll have all of this information, and you don't need to worry about keeping track of specific things that I cover on these slides. So with that, let's jump right into it. We have 3 goals for the presentation today. The first goal is to discover what WordPress is and if you should be using it, because WordPress is not the only website building platform out there. And for some people, it might not be the best option either. So I'm going to talk about some of the pros and the cons. And I hope that throughout that, you will be able to determine if WordPress is the right platform for you to build your website on. Secondly, I'm going to show you how to set up your WordPress website. And we're going to start by looking at how to find your WordPress theme, how to configure that theme so you're ready to start building your website on it. And third, we're going to talk about how you actually customize your WordPress website, everything from your text and your images, videos, helping you set up plugins, contact forms, and all the other odds and ends you need to do to get your WordPress website fully functioning and ready to help you monetize your business online. So the first thing I want to cover is really, what is WordPress and should your business be using it? Websites are very critical today in businesses' success. Obviously, reaching customers online, selling your products online, these are key aspects of why you need a website. And WordPress can be a great tool for building this website. It makes creating the website and updating it pretty darn easy. However, it's not the easiest platform out there. And so I'm going to talk about some of the alternatives as well. Now, not everybody knows that WordPress started almost 15 years ago as a way for people to make blogs online, and it still has a lot of the blog elements you'll see, and we'll cover these aspects of it that people don't commonly use nowadays, especially if you're building a business website on it. But WordPress has evolved tremendously since the early days, and now it's a fully functioning, very robust website building platform. Some of the biggest companies in the world build their websites on WordPress. A lot of Fortune 500 companies use it, and you would never know it was on WordPress as the end user. So it is a very robust, strong platform for the websites. But if you're new to WordPress, I do want to let you know that you're going to have some work to do on your website before you can launch it. And so this is the learning curve that it'll take for first-time users. But for anybody who's built a website before, this really should be quite a simple process. If you're brand new to websites, like a lot of business owners I talk to, then I'm going to walk you through, how you get into WordPress and to help you try to make sense of it, because it can be kind of confusing and frustrating for first-time users. But there's a lot of benefits to using WordPress. The first one is that WordPress is widely supported. So every couple of months, WordPress is updated to be compliant with the latest mobile phone operating systems, desktop browser updates. So whether or not your viewer is working on a desktop on Internet Explorer, Edge, Firefox, Chrome, or Safari, or any of the mobile phone website browsers, WordPress is going to be compatible with that. So you don't need to worry about your website not working on a certain browser configuration. Another good aspect of WordPress is that multiple users can contribute to your website for free. So you can create additional user accounts. If you have an employee, a coworker, a friend, a freelancer, somebody like that helping you to build it or maintain it, you can give them their own access absolutely free. And this really helps you keep the security of your website high. You can choose your own web host. The web host is the company that physically hosts your files for the website and serves them up to visitors. And the good news is with WordPress is that almost every host in the world, and there are thousands of hosts, pretty much everybody supports the WordPress platform. Some of the big ones are Google and GoDaddy, but this just gives you a freedom of choice to choose the host that you want, whether or not you prefer a company because you already use them, or you're looking for the lowest cost option out there, you have the flexibility to choose your own host. So big plus. I really like the plugin functionality for WordPress. Plugins are essentially third-party widgets, you could consider them, or code that you can put on your website. Sometimes they're free, sometimes you pay a slight fee to use them, but they add certain features. So for example, if your website that you're using doesn't currently have a contact form, there's a plugin to add that. If it doesn't have a place to display video content that kind of automatically rotates through videos, there's going to be a plugin for that. If you want a plugin that'll help you optimize your SEO, there's multiple ones to choose from. So plugins are a great benefit for using WordPress. And there are thousands of plugins to choose from, and I'll show you a bit how to go about finding them later on. Now, I get asked a lot, is search engine optimization important? How do I make sure I'm doing it right? So WordPress is built from the ground up with search engine optimization in mind. Search engine optimization just means when Google or Bing or some other search engine receives a search query, they're going to match it up with a website that they think best represents the answer to that query. So having your website have good search engine optimization increases your chance of showing up in the results. This gives you free website visitors, so it's very important. Every time those search engines update their algorithm on the results that they display, WordPress is aware of these changes and updates its code to be in compliance. So that's why I say it's built with search engine optimization in mind. And it gets you the basic search engine optimization just done automatically. WordPress also has many customizable themes. So other website builders like Wix or Squarespace that you might have seen or heard of, they also offer kind of a starting template for you to use. WordPress is very similar, except that its library of templates is huge in comparison to these other sites. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of beautiful templates to choose from. And this is an advantage because if you have a niche specialty, or your product is in a small niche, let's just say you are selling dog and cat food, and so you're kind of a pet supply focus, I'm sure there are themes built for pet supply stores. And what this means is that there are experts who've already thought about the best layout for you, the pages you'll need, the flow of the information, and you're able to take one of these themes. Sometimes they're free, and sometimes you pay a small one-time charge to buy them, like $30 or $50. And you have a huge jumpstart in building your website because they've already thought out the main components for you, and you just need to swap out the images and the text with your own. So that's a big plus. Also, most website hosts offer a one-click install of WordPress. This just means that you don't need to be a developer or know any computer coding to use WordPress. You can be a normal person, and there'll be a button when you go to GoDaddy or Google when you log in there, and they'll say, If you're setting up a website, should it be WordPress? Yes or no? And you can just usually click the button yes, and they'll set up WordPress for you. So those are some of the benefits. I think they're very compelling reasons why WordPress should be a good choice for many small businesses. Now, WordPress will require you spend a few hours each month maintaining your website. This usually includes installing updates to your plugins or updates to the WordPress engine itself. You might also find bugs or performance issues like image loading slowly or other things that you're going to want to take a few hours and just resolve every month. If you don't feel like you have this time, there are freelancers who are happy to maintain a WordPress website for you, and you can find them through various freelancer web platforms. Or there are other alternatives. So here I'll talk about two of the main competitors that are simpler to use than WordPress, but they also have cons. They are Squarespace and Wix. There are others that can be added to this list. GoDaddy Website Builder is becoming increasingly popular. That would also be a competitor. But essentially, Wix and Squarespace, they give you far fewer options on how to set up, customize, and manage your website. But by giving you fewer options, it's a bit easier to create the website for first-time users. However, if you want to sell e-commerce, then Wix and Squarespace make it a little harder and more expensive than WordPress does. But if you purely need an informational website that maybe is like just a one-pager that talks about your business location, your services, and has a contact form, then Wix or Squarespace or GoDaddy Website Builder could be valid alternatives to WordPress. I can almost guarantee they'll be easier to set up. However, if you plan on using this website for many years and maybe you want to expand it as your business grows, maybe you want to add a shopping cart, products to sell, or maybe there's like a recurring monthly subscription, WordPress is probably the way to go because Squarespace and Wix have a lot of limitations around how you can build and expand your website because they're aimed at a more simple level type of need. But for a lot of businesses, I feel like your website should be able to grow with your business and not be a limiting factor. And that's why I recommend WordPress quite often. And I've spoken to many dozens of businesses who started with a Wix or Squarespace website only to find out in a year or two that it was not able to meet their needs that they wanted it to do. So they moved it to WordPress, which is very time consuming and a challenging process. So I would recommend that you be really sure of what your needs are. And then you can best select the platform that will work with your needs. And I think in about 90% of the cases, WordPress is going to be the best platform. So I've talked about how WordPress updates its code base to be in compliant with SEO changes and browser compatibility. One example of how WordPress is updating is that in 2022, Google updated this thing called a Core Web Vitals, which is a change to its SEO algorithm. And so Core Web Vitals added a few elements, not just the old ones, which were, is the website mobile friendly? Does it have HTTP secure and intrusive code base? Those were like the basic SEO criteria. Well, it added these three new ones: loading, interactivity, and visual scalability. So Google deemed these are important, and WordPress, following on the heels of this announcement, updated their own code base to make sure that it was functioning properly with Google's new requirements. So just to show that this is one example of several that happen every year, the internet's constantly changing and evolving. And it's good to know that WordPress kind of has your back and is changing and evolving with it without you really having to do anything. So when an update comes out, there'll be a button on your administrative dashboard that says click here to update WordPress. You just simply click it and it'll update, and 99.9% of the time it works just fine and you're updated and there's no problems. So it's just a good thing to have the WordPress team and the nonprofit organization there making sure you're compliant with these latest changes. I get asked a lot, what's the difference between WordPress.org and WordPress.com? And there's some pretty significant differences. So I want to make sure we're clear on what they are and which of these is best for you. The short answer is WordPress.org is the platform that most of you should be considering, not WordPress.com. WordPress.org is the one, and I'll explain why. WordPress.org gives full theme support. So any of those thousands of themes I said are available for the WordPress.org. WordPress.com is a different site run by a different kind of group, and they are affiliated, but WordPress.com really restricts you into a very small selection of themes. So you're not going to find this theme selection there. On WordPress.org, you're allowed to use all of the great plugins developed by other developers to add functionality to your website over time without making you change your entire website. Whereas on WordPress.com, there are no plugins allowed. WordPress.org, you pay the hosting fees to Google or GoDaddy or some other host. These typically are in the order of $5 to $8 per month, whereas WordPress.com gives you free hosting up to about 3 gigabytes of storage. WordPress.org gives you full e-commerce freedom, so you're able to sell products, whether they're physical, digital, monthly subscriptions, you name it. Anything you can sell online, you can sell on a WordPress.org website. It doesn't cost you any more money. Whereas WordPress.com only enables you to sell e-commerce if you upgrade to a $45 per month plan, which is pretty steep in my opinion. WordPress.org gives you complete branding freedom. So like I said, even very large international companies use it, and you would never know it's running on WordPress. Whereas WordPress.com puts their own logo, in the footer, and you have to pay extra to remove that stuff. So it looks less professional. WordPress.org gives you full control of your search engine optimization, tuning, and tweaking to really maximize those free website visitors you get, whereas WordPress.com gives you much more limited control over your SEO. WordPress.org also gives you full analytics, so you're able to install Google Analytics or Facebook Pixel, which is Facebook's version, or any other analytic tracking you want. Whereas WordPress.com doesn't give you the ability to install third-party tracking like that, and they just give you very limited view of your analytics. And WordPress.org, you do the maintenance, which is why I said it'll take a few hours a month to kind of maintain your website, whereas WordPress.com, they do the maintenance. So for most of you, because you want to have a business and you want to sell online, you really do need to focus on WordPress.org. It is the much better option. And I've also been asked, can you move a website from WordPress.com to WordPress.org? And the short answer is not really. It's not really compatible. You have to build a new website. So just don't go down the wrong path at the beginning. I've seen that. And for most of you, WordPress.org is the place you want to focus. So if you're still interested in building on WordPress and you're ready to go with your first website, these are some of the initial steps on how to get it set up. The first thing you want to do is find a theme, and the theme is just the starting template, which is the look and the layout of your website. You can customize many aspects of the theme, the images and the text primarily. You can change the menu items, you can remove pages, and sometimes add pages. And so picking the right theme is going to be really important because you want it to be as close as possible to the ideal website you have in mind. So there's a few places to go looking for your theme. The first one is the official WordPress site. You'll see wordpress.org/themes. They have some very basic themes, which can work okay if you don't have many requirements, but they certainly don't have a lot of bells and whistles. Most of the time, I recommend businesses will look at these other two websites for more feature-rich themes that'll probably suit their needs better. First one is Theme Forest, which has a selection of thousands of themes, very professionally made, and also Color Lib, which you'll find here. And again, these links will be sent to you in the presentation, so you don't need to worry about copying them down right now. But whichever site you go to find your theme, the steps are going to be the same. You'll either find it for free or you'll buy it for a small fee, and then you will download it, usually in a zip file, and you'll upload that zip file to your WordPress dashboard, and you'll be set up with that new theme and be able to start customizing it. So that brings us to the WordPress dashboard. And for anybody who's ever seen a WordPress website before, this will be instantly recognizable. The layout of this dashboard really has not changed in probably 5 years or more. And I agree. I think it's looking a bit dated now compared to some of the competitors. You might find Wix's interface a bit more elegant, but nevertheless, this is the screen you'll look at a lot if you're managing a WordPress website, and it does get the job done. So what I'm going to talk about is the main items you need to pay attention to in the dashboard to properly set up, configure, and launch your WordPress website. The important items over here out of the left-hand menu are the Media tab, the Pages, Appearance, Plugins, Users, and Settings. And all of these do need to be properly set up before your website will be ready to be viewed. So starting with the first one here, Media, this is where you go to upload your images. So all the images that came with the default template will probably be loaded here already. In this example, there are a couple of default food pictures that were here, and then some of the actual custom images for this website that were uploaded as well. So you can leave the default images, you can delete them, that's completely up to you. But any image you want on your website needs to be first uploaded to your media library. Typically, these are JPEGs or PNGs, and you're able to do basic image manipulation here, like crop them to get them to look right on the website. Though for more fancy image editing, you'll need to use some other program like Photoshop before you upload them here to media. The second tab that's important is page management, and this is where you see all the different pages on the website. You'll spend a lot of time on this section because you'll be editing the content of your pages from here. And so you'll get very familiar with the different pages. So some of the pages listed here will be just in a draft mode, which means they're not actually launched. You can edit them, but nobody can see them other than you. And you can see that because it says draft next to like the privacy policy at the bottom. And the most important page here that you cannot delete or do without is called the home page, indicated by the tag front page. And this is the most critical one. Yes, I believe you are able to delete it by clicking trash, but that would make your website not visible. So you want to make sure you never delete that home page and the front page because that is the only one that's really required here. But the rest you're able to delete, rename, and edit, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So the theme management page is where you go to upload the theme that you have previously downloaded. Again, it usually comes in a zip file. I'll walk you through the steps, but you'll see here by default, you're going to have a couple of themes that are just put here by WordPress. These are some of their popular simple themes. Again, these usually are not sufficient for businesses unless you just need a very basic 1 or 2 page website. But this is where you go to switch out the theme. You can customize a lot of different aspects of your theme, obviously things like the logo, the text of the pages, and the configuration options vary from theme to theme. So that is one thing where WordPress does get a bit confusing because depending on the theme you go with, your configuration options might be slightly different or in different places. The next section is plugins, and this is where you go to view the plugins that are currently installed and those that have updates. Like you'll see here that several have a orange banner and it says update now. So when the screenshot was taken, these updates were available. And my advice is that if you log in and you're doing stuff in your website, you see there's an update available, you should go ahead and update it. The vast majority of the time, over 99%, no problems happen. It's going to make sure those plugins are working smoothly and compatible with other updates that have happened on the internet. And if you don't update things, eventually they will stop working or work in odd ways. So updating is just the best policy. Typically, it doesn't cause any problems. If it does, there's usually a way to roll back to an older version. But that is something that you'll have to do yourself if you're managing your WordPress website. And this is also the place you go to find new plugins. There's kind of a plugin store that I'll show you, which is a bit like the App Store for iOS and Android, where you can search by a keyword and then find all the plugins that do that. And I'll show you how that all works in a moment. The next section is the user management. Now you can have many users contribute to your website. They can each have their own login, which is great. So if you have a contractor or a friend or an employee working on this website with you, you can give them their own username so you can track who made changes to what pages. So you can hold people accountable. You can also remove access if they no longer need it. So you just is a good security policy, and this is a nice feature of WordPress. It's here by default, and adding users doesn't cost any money. And the last really important section is the general settings. These general settings are more foundational than the theme settings. They will be the same no matter which theme you're using. So it's a good idea to come into here and just make sure that these all look right. You'll want to set things like your site title and the tagline. You'll want to make sure that your time zone is correct and just these other settings. And once these are set properly for you, you can just save these changes with the button at the bottom, and you'll probably never have to look at this page again. It's just kind of a one-time thing you need to do at the beginning. So that ends the presentation part. I'm going to jump over to our active WordPress website to walk you through these menus here in real time, and hopefully you'll get a good sense of kind of how you navigate WordPress if you have not seen it before. So this is a live website. You'll see here on the left that there are the same menu items I talked about, but there are actually many more as well. And so the extra ones like these at the bottom, these are plugins. And many plugins will add their own menu item to help you configure that plugin. So yes, you start with a basic set of menu items, and then as you build your website or add new features, you might get more. So that's okay. The first thing we're going to do is start with the media tab, because this is one of the first ones that's really important. So when I go into media, I'm able to see all the images used on the website. I'm able to remove an image from the media section, which if it's on an active web page will make the image a broken link on the page. So you want to make sure you would only remove it if it wasn't being used. But really, there's not much need to remove images. You can have lots and lots of images here stored, and I've rarely seen people run into any kind of a limit with how many images they have. So you can also just add a new image by clicking on the Add New button, and you can drag and drop a file here or select your files. Now, again, typically your JPEG files is the most common, or PNG if you want it to be a transparent background. And it's often used on like a logo to have a transparent background. It just depends on the design and layout of your website. But you'll notice that it says maximum file size 32 megabytes. So this is set by the host, whether it's GoDaddy or Google or somebody else, and it's usually around 32 megabytes. And what this means is that if you try to upload a single image bigger than this, you'll get an error. And to be honest, 32 megabytes is a gigantic image for any website to use, and it should never be that big. My recommendation for file sizes for images on your website is that if they're a full screen image, meaning you want them to stretch edge to edge on any high resolution display, you're probably looking at about a 1 megabyte image at the most. And that's the extreme example. Most images on the website won't need to be full screen if they're simply taking up, a small portion of the middle of the page. I'd really encourage you to keep the image file size to between 200 and 300 kilobytes, which is much, much smaller than this 32 megabytes. Now, if you have your large file sizes and you're not sure how to resize them, you can do so in a program like Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom. But if you don't have one of those, you can also just Google free online image resizing tool. And there'll be many options that will let you upload your large image, specify the target file size you would like, and then it'll do the resizing for you and give you the smaller image. Those smaller images are what you should use here on your website. Because if you use too many large images, say over a megabyte, your website's going to load very slowly on mobile connections that are a little slow. And also, Google will negatively rank your SEO because you have too large file sizes and therefore a slow page load time. And that's an important factor for getting your SEO high. So by making sure your majority of your images are 200 to 300 kilobytes at the most, with the rare exception of an image maybe up to 1 megabyte, you're going to ensure that your page is quick loading and you're not going to be penalized by your SEO. The next section we're going to talk about is the Appearance tab. So the Appearance tab is where you go to manage your themes primarily. You'll see here that this website has a whole bunch of themes that are installed, but only one is active. So there's various reasons why you'd want this. You might go through several themes as you're contemplating building your website until you settle on the one you like. And these old ones just kind of hang out here. It's not a problem that they do. And you can tell the active theme because if you hover over any of the others, it'll say you can activate them, but the only one that you can't activate is the current activated theme. So the way you would install a new theme is click the button up here. It says Add New. And these are the kind of the WordPress.org selection that I mentioned before. They're bare bones. They can work if you need a simple website, and they're free. So you can hover over any, you can preview it, you can install it, and you can kind of test it out. But I think for most businesses, you're better off going to a bigger website like themeforest.net or ColorLib, like I mentioned, picking a really professional theme there that has the features you want. And then you're going to buy it or get it for free and download the zip file. So once you have the zip file, when you're on this page, you just click the upload theme button. And it says here, if you have the zip file, you just choose it and upload it. And that will add it to your, and that'll add it to your themes on this page, and it's ready to be activated. So it's pretty simple process to activate your theme, and hopefully you pick the right theme first, so you don't need to go through messing around with too many different themes. It's just quite time consuming. So I recommend you really do your research on what theme fits your needs the best and get it in here and activate it, and then you'll be ready to start customizing it. The next section that's important is the pages section. So the pages section is where you will start with your default pages that came with the theme. So depending on the theme that you picked, you might have 5 pages here, you might have 10, you might have 20. And a lot of them will be not necessary for your particular needs. So from here, you can actually delete pages that you completely don't want by clicking trash, but you really don't need to delete pages. Let's say in a few years, if you wanted the page back, you would not have it anymore. You can just simply take it from a published state to an unpublished state by clicking a quick edit. So it's really no harm in having lots of pages here. Now, the way to edit any page is going to be very similar. You're going to have several edit options. You'll have something called quick edit, and quick edit is just like it says. It only lets you edit a few simple things like the title, the author of the page, which isn't really usually very important. So you can't do a lot in quick edit. You can click on the edit button, which pulls up a different editing interface, and I'll show you how that looks. So this is kind of the ugly default WordPress editing interface. It's just what's standard on all websites. It gives you the ability to edit the website, but it's not very intuitive. It's not very friendly. And so almost every website will have an option like this that says edit with Elementor. So Elementor is one of the main ways developers build WordPress websites. There are several others, but Elementor is really popular. So if you, on your theme, if you see a button that says edit with Elementor, you can click on that button. And this is going to bring you into what I would recommend is the best editing interface for making the changes to your website that you need to. So it loads up here, and then you're in an editor that's called a WYSIWYG editor, which stands for what you see is what you get. So you're editing a live website now, and if you were to change a simple thing like put a couple more periods, and then you click the update button here that's green, now the website will be immediately updated to reflect these changes. You can also change the text just as easy, change images just as easy. So this is a very good interface to make the majority of your changes in. And this is most likely the interface you will see if you get a professionally made WordPress theme from ThemeForest or ColorLib. But I'm not going to save any changes here because this is a live website. There's a few other things you can do on the Pages tab. If you have a website, a page that you want to duplicate, you can click a button that says duplicate this. And this can be handy if you have a product page and you want an identical looking page, but just to customize it for a different product. You can duplicate an existing page, just change the relevant pieces, and now you, with a lot of time saved, you have a brand new product page. So duplicating pages can be quite handy, and you do that by clicking this button. The next section I'm going to talk about are plugins. Now, again, plugins are one of the best features of WordPress. There are thousands of professionally made plugins that will help add new features to whatever your website currently has. all of the plugins listed here are ones this website currently has installed. So you can see there are quite a few. I think they say there's 23 plugins, which, you know, the more plugins you have, to be honest, it can slow down your website sometimes because each of these plugins can be running code on your website, which can make it load slower. So I recommend you only install plugins that you need to meet your objectives online, whether it's to sell your products or to communicate with your audience. You can update a plugin by clicking the button that says Update Now. And if you want to add a new plugin, you just click on the button up at the top that says Add New. And this is going to take you to the plugin store, which is a lot like an app store where you can browse featured plugins or popular plugins, recommended and favorites, things like that. But mostly what you're going to do is find a plugin that you need, and you're going to search for its type here. So let's just say you want to sell with e-commerce, but you don't have a shopping cart on your template. So you need an e-commerce. So you're just going to search for e-commerce. Okay. And so it says there are 1,036 results for e-commerce. So, you know, essentially there's over 1,000 plugins that do e-commerce in one way or another. So often this can be a bit bewildering and confusing to people trying to figure out, well, which of these 1,000 is the one I should use? Well, I'd recommend that if you can get a recommendation from another business owner that you know, or from somebody who's built a WordPress website and has used a plugin and says that they really like it, then that's a good place to start. You know, if you have a direct recommendation. If you don't have a recommendation from somebody you know, I look for the plugin that has the most number of reviews and also the highest rating of reviews. For e-commerce, this plugin is called WooCommerce. And I do know for a fact that this is, in my opinion, the best e-commerce plugin for WordPress. And so I would install it if I was creating this WordPress website from scratch. But you know, your needs might be different and you might decide to install a different e-commerce plugin. There are many, many options available. And for anything you could think of you want to add, there's usually a plugin to add it. So this is a great way to add new features without having to redevelop and redesign your entire website. It's a big benefit of using WordPress compared to those other ones like Wix and Squarespace. The next tab is the users. From here, you can browse users that you have access to the website. You can simply add a new user by clicking the new user button, and you're able to add new users with their own level of access, which is helpful to keep tight control over your website and who's able to log in and make changes. And the next section that we'll talk about is the general section. So this is where you go to review things like your site title, a tagline if you want it, and a few other common settings. Now, sometimes these will be set up for you from your host by default correctly, and other times they just won't be. So you want to log into here and double check that these all look good, and then you can click Save Changes at the end. And so by going through these pages that I just talked about and making sure that they're set up correctly, these are the most critical parts to getting your website up and running properly. Of course, there's a whole lot more detail that can be gone into in almost any of these categories, but as far as just an overview, that's what I wanted to accomplish today. So now we'll be able to take some of your questions, and I hope that you all have a couple of questions for me, and we'll get through as many as that we can today. And if you can't stick around and you have to go, thanks for participating, and I hope this was very useful to you. Thank you.
Great, Cameron. We do have a few questions that have popped in. So let's see. First question is, how and where do I place an affiliate link onto my website? I will say it looks like they're using GoDaddy.
Okay, so by placing an affiliate link on your website, I guess it could mean a couple different things, but what I'm taking it to mean is that you're selling things via e-commerce, and you want an affiliate of yours to promote your items on their website.
There's a little bit, so I'm learning about affiliate marketing so that we can sell things like tires and auto-related items on our driving school website.
Okay. So in that case, I think this situation's reversed, where you might be selling tires that are found on, say, Amazon's website, and you want to link to that product page on your website, I think then that's the scenario. In that case, Amazon's going to give you, you're going to create an affiliate account there called Amazon Associates, if that's the site you're going to sell through. But in any case, whatever site it is, they're going to give you a little piece of code. And you're just going to copy and you're going to paste that code onto the website where you want that affiliate link to appear. And what that code's going to do is probably pull an image directly from, say, Amazon. It'll pull some text. It might even pull the price, the live price. And of course, it'll put that button to buy now. So all of that is pre-packaged by Amazon or the other site that you're linking to. And you just need to simply log in, get the code that they'll give you, and put that code on the page you want to have listing that item. So, and I'm sure that sites like Amazon and others, they have probably more detailed instructions, but in a nutshell, that's what the process is like.
Great. Let's see. For blogging and e-commerce, what do you think of Shopify?
So Shopify is another website building platform. It's good if you are selling, yes, with e-commerce. Yeah, it can also do a blog as well, though it's not really meant for that. I think, WordPress, being that it was originally a blogging platform, has a really robust blogging interface. You're able to moderate comments, you're able to delete comments, approve comments. You have a lot of flexibility. With Shopify, I don't think they give you that level of control over a blog you're writing. So that might be a limitation with Shopify, but Shopify definitely has a very good e-commerce experience. So if you just want an e-commerce store, and you're not concerned with limitations that Shopify has that WordPress might not have, then it can be a really good option. But I think it would be necessary to know a little bit more about what you're trying to sell and what the focus of the business is to guide you more if Shopify would be better than WordPress, because either one could be better depending on your unique situation.
So there was a question that came up, I think, because you were talking about .org for WordPress. Wondering if it was limited to government companies, but
it's
I'll
not.
let you elaborate.
No.
But
Yeah. So yeah, just an explanation. The WordPress code base, its platform, is run by a nonprofit organization, and that's indicated by the .org extension of their domain. They're a nonprofit organization. The WordPress.com is a for-profit branch of the nonprofit organization, so the relationship there is not explained very clearly usually, but anybody can use WordPress.org. Of course, they are just a nonprofit organization, which is why the .org.
Is there a way to automatically accept plugin updates?
There's really not. And I think the reason is because, as I said, in my experience, 99.9% of the time installing any kind of update, it works fine. It never causes a problem. But there's a very rare chance that just because of your unique website or something else you have going on the website, or perhaps the update to the plugin had a bug in it inherently, that it actually makes something not work. And so I think the reason why you have to manually click the button is because you're agreeing that you're taking the responsibility in case something stops working. Again, it's a very rare occurrence, and I wouldn't let it worry you. But no, there's no way to just automatically let the plugins get installed for that reason, or the updates to be installed.
I'm pretty sure you covered this first part. Does having a lot of plugins slow down site performance? But they go on to ask, how do you counteract this?
So yes, I've seen quite often that a small business is saying my website's loading really slowly, and I take a look and they have 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 plugins running, and one or multiple ones are loading code in the background, going to other websites to retrieve information before your page will load, etc., and it is causing the problem. So while the plugin developers should be really good about making sure this is not impactful, sometimes that they just take more resources, these plugins, than ideally they would for whatever reason. So the best way to mitigate that is to only install plugins that are really critical. So instead of going to the plugin store or shop page and browsing around and saying, oh, this looks like it'd be cool to have on my website, and installing it, that'll probably lead to having unnecessary plugins. And even if you're not using them, if they're installed, they could be taking up resources and slowing down your web page loading time. So only install plugins that really solve a clear business objective, like having a contact form or having e-commerce or having a video carousel to help sell your products. But first, identify the need of your website. And if it's not already fulfilled in the theme you pick, then you can go pick a plugin that'll just fulfill a need and try to limit the amount of plugins you have installed. That's my best advice.
We have a follow-up to that Shopify question. I'm starting a home lifestyle blog, recipes and home improvement stories with a vision to add e-commerce down the line, depending on the blog's success. Given the desired trajectory, would you recommend starting on WordPress or Shopify?
Well, I would probably start on WordPress, because if the blog is the first thing you're going to launch and e-commerce will come second, Shopify is really an e-commerce first type of platform. They make their profit by helping you sell your products. They don't make any profit helping you write a blog website. So, they're not focused on that. And to be honest, they probably prefer websites that didn't have e-commerce to not even use their platform, because that's how they make their money. So yeah, I would focus on WordPress, and just keep in mind, you can always add e-commerce functionality when you're ready, like what I showed you with WooCommerce, or an alternative version. So I would encourage you to start with that.
Does the number of images housed in your media slow down your site?
So it does not, no. Only the number of images actively put on a web page. So you could have, and I've seen thousands of images in a media library, and only, maybe 50 or 100 are actually used across the entire website. And so only those that are loading on a specific page will impact the page's load time.
For blogs, what are the top 5 plugins that you would recommend to get started?
So blogs don't need a plugin, luckily, because WordPress was made as a blogging platform. The options, and actually I'll go back there because I'm still sharing my screen. But if you look at my screen share again, the options such as posts are there by default in every single WordPress installation. And what these posts are, these are blog posts. And so you don't need a theme to specifically be a theme or a blogging template, because the posts, being such a foundational part of WordPress, is just here on every theme that I've ever seen. So you don't need a plugin. Now, how your posts are displayed will vary depending on how the theme decides they're going to be displayed. So when you're browsing themes, I would look at some sample blog posts, and some you might like the layout of more than others because they'll suit your needs better, and that might help you pick a theme. But as far as adding posts, the process is always the same. You just go here, you click add new. Themes are probably going to have some sample posts already that you can modify if you don't want to create one from scratch. So the process is pretty simple.
Are there, excuse me, are there plugins for forms or surveys?
Yes, there are. Again, there's several different plugins to do that. And I don't think I really have one that I would recommend over another. I've seen multiple form plugins in use, and I mean, they all seem to work pretty well. I'll take a look here and see what comes up first, but generally speaking, you could go with one that again has the highest number of reviews and the highest rating. So Contact Form 7 I've heard of. It's popular. It only has 4 out of 5 stars. You can see here WP Forms has 12,000 reviews and 5 stars. Probably the one I would go with if I didn't have another recommendation. But yeah, there's quite a few different ones. Now they will have slightly different features. And so as you're looking at these, I would click on the button that says more details. And that'll load up a short page talking about the benefits of this plugin. I would read through a couple different ones and see which one seems to be fitting your needs the best, and then install that one.
I sell on several websites. Can I cross-list to my own website, or connect my stores on one website?
Yeah, I think that really depends on the e-commerce, plugin that you're using. So if you're using something like WooCommerce, what it will do is help you create your products, put a price, put a shipping amount, all these different pieces of information. It'll then display that on a page for you, and then there'll be a link to add it to the shopping cart, and they built the shopping cart and the credit card payment page and all that stuff. So that's all included with WooCommerce. So if you want to then sell your products on another website, I'm thinking the best way to do that is to build your full product page on your main website. And then if you have another website and you want to say, click here to buy that product, you could make, the here a link to the product page on the main website, or put a button that says click here, and that button will take them to the product page on the main website. But I think as far as the flow and the user experience goes, that would be the best way to achieve what you described.
Can you convert a Wix website into WordPress? And if so, how? I don't know if that's an easy explanation.
You cannot convert Wix to WordPress. I mean, the best thing you can do will be to copy and paste the text and save the images and have that ready. So then when you install your theme in WordPress, you're able to just paste the text in and upload the images to media. So you can organize the process to be simpler and quicker, but there is no automatic import, primarily because they're two competing platforms. So the code base is going to be different. And also the destination content layout and the originating content layout are probably not a one-to-one match. So wouldn't know where to put things anyway. So you've got to do it manually. But like I said, you can make the process organized if you kind of just get the page content organized beforehand.
Okay. This attendee is questioning, how do I remove my name and date from my WordPress blog post?
So that's a good question, and I haven't encountered that one before, but I suspect when you go to posts, if there is an option to not have those things visible, there'll be a checkbox that says, show the poster's name. I can't guarantee that it's even an option to take that off, though, because it's kind of a integral part to how the blog system works. Like, there's usually a poster's name and a poster's date. So whether or not you even have the ability to take it off, I'm not 100% sure. But where I would look is go to the posts tab and maybe edit an individual post and see if you see a checkbox to uncheck that box to remove those pieces of information. If it's not there, you probably don't have any other option to remove it.
You spoke of researching your best theme. How do I research theme?
So my go-to website to start with is themeforest.net. When you go there, there's a search bar at the top. I'll just show you real quick. It's pretty easy. So here's themeforest.net. And so you can search for a website by industry. Well, let's just say you're a nail salon for fun. So a nail salon, and you'll just pick WordPress. That'll just make sure it only gives you the WordPress themes that are a nail salon. So that's it. So now we've got 70 items that were returned for nail salon. And as you can see, they have prices ranging from 80, 40, some are free and some are a one-time purchase. If you can click into these and have a preview, you can buy them. And once you buy them, it'll give you a zip file, which you download and upload to your WordPress dashboard there. So this is it. You will just browse the different options here. And if you try typing in a different search query, you'll find many other templates. Because like I said, there are thousands here, broken down by lots of different categories.
Okay. What is the rule of thumb about the number of plugins that are best to use so that they don't slow down a site? And then should video content be used sparingly?
So the number of plugins, again, fewer the better as far as page load speed goes. No plugin makes your website load faster, okay? And plugins do have the ability to make your web page load slower. Now, a plugin's not going to say, this is going to make your page load 1 second slower if you install it, right? They don't tell you that. So the plugins in general that have higher reviews, higher ratings, are those that are people most satisfied with. So those are probably having less impact. But again, I think you want to determine a business objective you need your website to meet, and then find a plugin that can meet that objective, as opposed to just installing plugins that you think might be interesting or look cool, because that is just a path to have unnecessary things. So identify the objective, find a highly rated plugin, and and the best thing to do is if say you have 3 plugins you want to install, I would install them one at a time. So install the first one, maybe it's e-commerce or a contact form or a video, and get it set up, and then reload your web page and load it on a couple different devices and see, oh, did that noticeably impact the speed? So if you do them one at a time, and all of a sudden your page is loading 3 seconds slower after you installed a plugin, you'll know which one it was. Otherwise, it's very hard to troubleshoot which one. It can get very time consuming to kind of like go into the code and run diagnostic tools. It's not a simple process to find usually what is slowing down a page every time. So, but if you install your plugins one by one, it'll help. And the second part of your question was, do video content slow down the load time? No, it doesn't. Typically, if you're hosting videos nowadays, you'll host them either on YouTube or an alternative site like that, and you'll just link to them or embed them in your web page. And the advantage is then YouTube has to pay the bandwidth cost essentially to stream the video content. You don't have to, because that can get very expensive. In that case, there's very, very minimal impact on your page load time, because all it loads is the thumbnail of your video, which is probably going to be 50 kilobytes or 100 kilobytes at the most. So that loads into your page, but the video doesn't start loading until somebody clicks play, and then it actually loads from YouTube servers anyway. So the most elegant solution is going with like YouTube, and it won't impact the page load speed much at all.
I will also share that attendee says you are an excellent presenter. I agree.
Oh, thank you.
How do I place my name at the bottom of my website instead of WordPress?
So if you're on WordPress.org, like I said, you can edit every aspect, including what's in the footer. So if it has like a copyright line, you can change that. That's going to be changed when you go into the settings of your theme. Now, depending on the theme you have, the exact page you'll find that is going to be slightly different. But over in the demo website here, if I hover over appearance and I click on customize, this is probably where you should look to change that. It's going to give you a page that looks a lot like this. And over on the left, you can change various things like there's general, header. Here's the footer section. And here you should be able to change whatever settings are available to change on your theme in the footer. So I would start by looking here on this. And again, I got to that by hovering over appearance and then going to customize. I'll give you those options.
Where can I find which .htaccess file is active to edit security header and whether server banners are displayed? I thought I edited mine correctly, but it still shows it hasn't been done.
That's a really good question, and one that's probably best for a professional WordPress developer to answer. Unfortunately, that's not really in my skill level. I mostly look at this from a business practitioner point of view and helping people make the best choices when it comes to platforms. But that's probably a coding issue, and it will require looking at the code, which you can do in WordPress if you're an advanced user, but it's not something that I have the answer to. So if you can get in contact with a WordPress developer with 3 or 4 years of experience, they'll probably be able to guide you to the right answer on that one pretty quickly. Otherwise, you could try Googling it, which might also reveal the answer with a bit more time.
How do you link something like Google Calendar to WordPress?
So that's a really easy Google Calendar, as well as probably most other calendars like Outlook, the Microsoft one. In the settings, they're going to have a page that's talking about integrations. And with Google Calendar, they're going to give you a snippet of code, which is 4 or 5 lines of code, which again, you're going to copy from your Google Calendar settings page, and you're going to paste that into your web page where you want the calendar to appear. Pasting the code in does require you to go into that advanced code editing interface, which is a bit dangerous because if you delete one apostrophe or one semicolon, you could break the page. So that's one way to do it, but you do need to be careful you don't accidentally delete a piece of code. The other way to do it is there are plugins that will basically take your code that Google gives you, and the plugin will insert the code into your page, essentially removing the possibility of error. So I would just search for Google Calendar plugin, and that will allow you to just more simply copy the code Google gives you into a page on your website if you don't want to edit the code. So either one of those are options.
What is the best way to secure WordPress on a server versus cloud?
Well, okay, when you talk about securing WordPress, you're probably talking about how to make it so it cannot be hacked into. So in that sense, any website server where hosting a website is running in the cloud because that's how it's accessed. So they're all essentially in the cloud. If you look at Google or GoDaddy, which are two of the biggest website hosts, they have lots of security measures in place. You can read about them. They encrypt stuff. They talk about what their uptime percentage is. If they've been hacked, it's usually in the news, though really I haven't heard about them being hacked because they have very good security. So mainly if you go with a big company, your security and your concern about being hacked is minor. If you go with a smaller file host, you'd probably want to really do your research on them to see if they have been hacked in recent memory. So that's one piece of advice. The other piece of advice when you talk about security is who actually has a login to your website. So again, under the users tab here, you can create a login for different people. And I would definitely do that. I would never give out your original administrative login and password to somebody because it just opens it up to additional risk. So you just create them their own account. And then when they were done working on the website, you can delete that account. And that really does help secure your website from your end, where your host, Google or GoDaddy or somebody else, is securing your website from their end. And if you follow those practices, I don't think you'll have problems with security issues.
How long would it take to build a website with WordPress as a new user?
I would estimate, it depends a bit on how complex the website is, but let's just say it's a simple website. You have 3 pages, a home page, a contact page, and an about page, okay? A simple website like that, from start to finish, you're probably looking at between 4 hours at the low end, up to 8 or 10 hours. And it'll get more complicated if you are a bit just slower, navigating the menus and stuff. Yeah, but I would say between 4 and 10 hours. If the website has more pages, then it'll definitely add on time with each of those. But yeah, that's typically what you're looking at.
Okay, let's see.
And I might also say, I just thought of it, I'll compare that to if you built a website on, say, Wix or Squarespace. I think building a similar website on Wix would probably take you roughly half the time. I think you would build that website in about 1.5 or 2 hours at the low end and maybe 4 or 5 hours at the high end. So yeah, WordPress will take longer because they have more options, they have more menus, they have more settings. But again, that also gives you the flexibility to upgrade lots of things about your website later without having to switch to a whole new website hosting platform and building a whole new website.
Is WordPress usable for a construction company?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I've talked to some home improvement companies and home remodeling companies, and we've built websites for them on WordPress. It's absolutely fine. In fact, if you search theme forest for home construction and various keywords like that, there are a lot of themes meant for these industries. So I think you'll easily find a theme that really fits your needs and looks the way you want it to look, and it should not be too hard to customize it for your business.
Our site is telling us we have a license mismatch. What does this mean and how do I fix it?
So for example, sometimes a license can be given to you by the person who made your website theme, or it could be given to you by a plugin that you're using. So depending on what license it is for, how you'd resolve that is going to be different. And so without probably seeing a screenshot of the message, I wouldn't know. But if it's a license mismatch for the theme, then you would just need to contact the theme developer, their support. It's probably a group of professional developers who develop that theme. They'll have a support channel. What the license is for the theme, it means that if you have bought it, then they give you a license key and it shows that you purchased it. So it lets the theme be active. I've seen from time to time that, there might be a mix up on their server and some valid key is now reporting invalid. But if you contact them, they should resolve it for you quickly. If it's a license key error with a plugin, you'll need to, again, determine what plugin that is for, and then contact the developer of the plugin. They're always going to have a support email you can reach out to. And again, I would include a screenshot of the error and send it to the appropriate developer. Either your subscription has expired and maybe you need to pay for that again if it was a paid thing, or they might have had some error in their server somewhere, in their license server, and it's throwing out this error when it shouldn't be. But the only way to really resolve it would be to contact the developer of the plugin or the theme.
Are there ways to link Google to my web page?
Well, Google has lots of services, like we just talked about Google Calendar. So it depends on how you want to link them. If you can be more specific, you need to let me know like what Google service you're talking about, because there's just so many of them.
May we take our own existing job application and add to our website?
An existing job application?
That's what it says.
Okay.
We'll see if
I'm not sure what it means. The question means.
yeah, okay. Peggy, if you can follow up on that one, we'll get back to you. If we want to become more proficient at WordPress and get a good foundation, what trainings, either through SBDC or elsewhere, would you recommend?
Yeah, I think this is the first step, this training. There's a good selection of YouTube videos made by various, companies or freelancers talking about building WordPress websites for the first time. You'll have access to this recording. It'll be sent to you, so you can always refer to this. But if you want additional information, you can reach out to the help email at SBDC, and hopefully, they can find someone who will be able to guide you. If not, I would go to YouTube and search for, maybe you want to create your first homepage in WordPress, if that's where you're at. So just search for that. There'll be some tutorials about getting your very first homepage set up, or maybe you're trying to find a good host. You could probably find a good YouTube video talking about some of the major hosts and the pros and the cons. So I would probably come in with some specific questions depending on what step you're at. Maybe you want help finding a theme, and so you could look for a video on that. But I think video content on YouTube is very good in explaining these things. So other than this presentation and the SBDC's help, I'd refer you to YouTube.
Okay. A follow-up to the question about job application, employee application for a new hire is what they were asking about putting on their website.
Okay. Well, I think I still need more clarification, because a job application could be like a PDF, or it could be a fillable form, or could be any number of formats you want it to take. So, yes, you can upload a PDF to your website if that's what you want. If you wanted a fillable form, you could probably link to what's called a Google Forms, where you can make a form in Google Forms and put that on your website for an application process would be pretty good. There's lots of other third-party hiring platforms where you can build a form and link to the form on your website, but then the form would be hosted on, some third-party hiring platform. So there's so many options out there. I guess it depends on what kind of layout you're envisioning for this and how you want the process to work.
How can I copy a post in order to create a new one with the same layout?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to a blog post, and that's going to be pretty easy. I'll go over here to the posts page, and you should always have a button that says duplicate this. So very similar to the pages, you can duplicate a page. Here you can duplicate a post. And of course, a blog post is just a page, essentially, with its own layout. So by duplicating the blog post, it'll then have a copy of this post, and you can then rename the name of the post and the content of the post, and you'll be ready to go. So that's the easiest way to do it, is to just click on duplicate this.
Okay, so here's one. This is a little somewhat lengthy. Where could I find reliable developers? I've used, is it Fiverr, Fiverr?
Fiverr, yeah.
Fiverr, thank you. And Upwork. But this person was told by an SBDC advisor that you have to really be careful, because some international developers have been known to install unwanted code on your site to make a profit off of your website traffic.
So To the first point of your question, where to find good developers, Fiverr and Upwork are the two biggest platforms. Yes. And I prefer Upwork just because I think it's easier to navigate, but very similar types of developers will be on both platforms, and often they have profiles on both. So it doesn't really matter where you look. So you can find them there. I mean, how do you ensure that they're reliable and trustworthy? If you have a personal recommendation that somebody worked with a developer before and had a good experience, that's the best. The second best is to read their reviews, of which Fiverr and Upwork are really good at showing you reviews. And you can even sort by like 1-star reviews. So you could read the worst reviews and see what the complaints were. I would think that's very valuable. It's also a bit up to you, just like with any decision you make about spending your money, you have to vet who you're going to pay. So, do an interview with them. I would always recommend doing at least 2 or 3 different interviews with different developers, preferably a video chat, for 15 or 30 minutes. See how well they communicate, see how well they understand your business and your needs, and see just how much confidence you have in them, based on the interview. But those are my best pieces of advice. If you'd like to reach out and get a list from me, you can reach out to the help email address. And that'll make its way to me. And I do have some developers I'd be happy to recommend that I've worked with many times. So yeah, we can go that route if you'd like. And also, picking a developer depends a little bit about what kind of website you need made. So if you're looking for something specific, let's just say you wanted a user login dashboard and some things that might require a JavaScript or some kind of specialty coding, then it's good to know that at the beginning so you can match up with the developer who has that experience, so you can have a good experience with them building your website.
I think you covered this, but I'm going to go ahead and ask again, just in case you didn't. Would I use a plugin to secure my website from hackers or spam?
So hackers and spam are two very different things. So I'll start with the hackers. Like I said, if you don't share your main login and password with people, and Google and GoDaddy are securing their networks like they always do, being hacked into is not something I hear happening very often. The other thing I'll say about that is that if there's an update to a plugin or an update to WordPress, by always keeping those things updated, you're also minimizing your chances of being hacked into because there's some vulnerability in the WordPress platform or a plugin. So, but if you search for WordPress hacks, you will find news stories. This happened, in the last couple of years. I remember WordPress being hacked several times. Anything can be hacked, and so WordPress is no different. Though the amount of damage and what was stolen, it varies. So you could read up on the history of the hacks. But essentially, every platform has a possibility of being hacked, and nothing is 100% bulletproof. What was the second part of the question? Could you remind me?
Sure. Let's see. So would I use a plugin to secure my website from hackers or spam?
So spam is an interesting one. The main way you're going to get spam through your website is by having a contact form. And there are bots that will go around and just fill out every contact form they can get their hands on. And it's just, it's a spam machine, essentially. They're going to send you a message that says, hey, do you want to increase your business growth 1,000%? Contact our salesperson. So you can get these spam messages through your contact form. And the way around that is what's called a CAPTCHA, or the kind of, sometimes it's a puzzle you solve. Sometimes you give an answer to a simple math problem. But these are just simple processes put in place that one of these bots can't solve, so they cannot submit your contact form. There's certainly many options like that. Google has a good one that's built in, it's free. You can also search the plugin store for other spam filters. And if you want one that's more complicated, one of the most complicated ones I've seen is like solving a jigsaw puzzle, which only really a human can figure out. So computers, at least at this point, aren't able to like piece the puzzle together. So, the puzzle's pieced together and then the submit button is active. So that's the main way people are avoiding getting spam nowadays, is by integrating or implementing one of these options. And again, you can find those through the plugin section.
Does WordPress connect well to a SQL server?
So an SQL server is commonly just like a database or a backend server storing information of whatever you need it to. And so, yeah, a lot of WordPress websites will link to an SQL server for whatever reasons you need it to. So I assume you have, what you have that SQL server storing in mind and why you need it to be storing that. So there's absolutely no reason why a WordPress website wouldn't talk to that server just as well as a website built on any other platform.
If it says not secure in my URL at the top of my page, how do I fix that?
So what that means is it doesn't say HTTPS, it says HTTP. So a few years ago, Google and the major search engine companies realized that not having a secure connection to a website was a vulnerability, and still a lot of websites don't have the HTTPS. So you'll see that message if your website doesn't have HTTPS. So enabling HTTPS is usually, depending on your WordPress host, it should be done by them. So if it's GoDaddy, for example, I've installed many WordPress websites in the last 12 months, and it's set up by default. But if your website's older than a couple of years, perhaps it was never set up. It's probably a question of either you could contact your host, whether it's GoDaddy, Google, or somebody else, and see if they can enable HTTPS for you. And if they say they can't, or they need you to do some coding stuff on your website in conjunction with what they do, then you might also have to have a developer do some of that work, set some settings and configuration settings on your website. So that's the best answer I can give you right now, because again, it's not something that's come up recently to me. So I'd start by contacting your website host.
This is a follow-up to that license mismatch. I'm not sure if it's a question, but I'll just read what it says. For the license mismatch, it says current domain. It says to deactivate and reactivate. It says likely due to a change in the domain URL.
Well, I mean, the domain is obviously your website name, your business.com. So again, I don't know what's causing that error. I'm assuming you didn't change your domain name. That would have been pretty significant. And obviously that would have thrown some things out of whack probably. So if you didn't change that, it's just some other error. And whether that's coming from your theme developer or a plugin you're using, you're going to have to contact them and to get to the bottom of it, because without being able to get my hands on it, I just wouldn't know.
Our very first question, unfortunately, the attendee had to step away for a moment, so I'm going to go ahead. They're asking apologizing and asking if you could just go over it again. It was the one questioning, how and where do I place an affiliate link on my website? It was the driving school. Do you recall?
Well, I mean, again, it depends on where the product's being sold. Is it Amazon, or I think you said there was tires, so maybe it's like an online tire store. Wherever you want a link to get that product, where they're going to buy the product, they're going to give you the code to put on your website. So if it's Amazon, it's really easy. It's called Amazon affiliates, and you sign up and they give you a little piece of code which you'll put on your website in the place where you want that affiliate link to appear. And depending on if it's like another tire store online, they're going to have a similar process. But it's just a matter of kind of going into your settings there, your dashboard, and copying that code and then pasting it into your WordPress website.
This is someone you've answered some questions for. She's thanking you. It's been fantastic. And she's wondering if what you've given us today is enough to take off and build our own small website.
I think for many people, yes. It's hard to say because everybody's going to have a different website they need to build. And so the simplest website out there, yes, I think this is enough. You'll have the recording, and you'll have me walking through those different pages and what you do in each one. If your website's more than a couple of pages, though, you might run into things I just didn't have time to cover. It's very likely. So at that point, if you probably would want to have someone who you could ask some questions to. Ideally, it would be a WordPress developer. If you don't know anybody like this, you could probably find someone, again, on an Upwork website that would be willing to for a small hourly fee, kind of answer some of your questions if you run into trouble. Or perhaps there's somebody at the Virginia SBDC who could also play that role, and you could reach out to the help email address to inquire about that. But yeah, I think you should be able to do it. And even if you don't succeed on your first try, you're going to learn a lot, run into a couple of roadblocks perhaps, but you can surmount any roadblocks, and then you'll be better off for learning how to do it.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is a question or if this was a follow-up to one of the questions, so I'll just read what it says. Gmail SMTP plugin cannot send email until you enter your credentials in the settings and grant access to your web application.
Or is this the license, the problem with the license key, or a different?
I don't know. This is an anonymous attendee. The other one had a name on
Yeah.
it, so I'm not sure. So,
Okay.
but if this person, I guess, is still here, maybe they can
I
elaborate.
assume they're different questions then.
Yeah, I do too.
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that one. It sounds like it's a configuration problem with Gmail. Gmail's got a lot of settings mainly aimed at increasing your security and privacy online. So sometimes if you're trying to send email from a Gmail address through a website form, you've got to go to some obscure setting and enable it. And there's honestly so many different settings it could be. Without researching that error in more detail, I wouldn't know where to go. But if I was you, I would first try to Google that error, pretty much as you told me, and see if you can find a forum or some page talking about it and possible solutions. If that fails, I would probably reach out to Gmail support. They do have an email address. They're very slow in responding because they get a lot of emails, but you can ask them, how do I resolve this problem? But I think those are your two best bets.
And so we have one last question, and it was a random question as they state, but just wondering, how does WordPress make money if it's free? Any ideas?
Well, WordPress.org, I believe they're a nonprofit organization. I know they could very well do get donations, probably from some big tech people and people with money in the tech world. So they're a nonprofit organization. The WordPress.com is for profit, and again, they're kind of affiliated, so perhaps that's helps support WordPress.org. But yeah, again, I don't know a ton about the composition of the team or how big that organization is or where they're located. So it'd be interesting to learn more about that. But yeah, that's about all I know about like how they're funded and how they keep operating. But I know that the team of WordPress.org, they're the ones who monitor changes happening on the internet and update the WordPress code base and keep it both secure and functioning smoothly with SEO changes and things like that.
We had another question pop in. I'm working on a paid subscription section to my WordPress site. Should I have a second WordPress site from the first one point to the subscription for security reasons? My site is SSL and HTTPS right now.
Okay, well, so it sounds like you have a portion of your website that is only available to those who have subscribed to your website, which is very common. I don't think you need to have a second website in this scenario at all. That sounds overly complicated, but you do obviously need to have the website coded properly so that only someone who has logged in and currently has like paid their subscription can access those pages that are paid pages only. So that really comes down to probably there's not really going to be a template out there that's going to have it set up exactly the way you need. So you'll probably need to hire a developer to make sure that the pages are working like you intend. So if you're not a developer yourself and you're starting down this road, I'd highly recommend that you would work with a developer on this process. Now, you could start with a theme and a template that has the look and the layout that you want, but it's not going to probably have the user login and all the nuts and the bolts. That'll need to be set up in the back end by a professional developer.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? I will also tell you someone else commented that it was an excellent webinar. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Another great training, amazing presentation. For someone like myself who pushed through the days it took to do it on my own. So lots of positive feedback. Thank you, Cameron. And thank you all for attending.
Yes, thank you.
If there's no other questions, if there are no other questions, I guess I will go ahead and wrap us up then. So again, I do want to thank everyone for attending today. You will receive an email with the link to the recording and to the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for free and confidential sessions by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And we hope to see you at our next session. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.